Welcome back to another episode of the Revolution Watch podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Cureau, joined as always by Stephanie Eep. Steph, how are you?
I'm good.
That's it? Okay, all right. And today we have two very esteemed guests, Mr. Daniel.
One.
Oh,
Just
not
one.
about
Just
Long.
one.
Just me.
I don't
Is it Long or is it Daniel? Who's the esteemed guest in the group?
isn't it? Yeah.
All right, so we have Daniel and Long Long. Daniel is one of the founders of the Shanghai Watch Gang, a very prominent group of collectors based in Shanghai.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And Long, we know you because we just had you on our podcast before.
Yeah, I'm happy
Just
to
recently.
be back.
So
Yeah,
this is
fun.
almost like part two, I guess, of your conversation.
You're the only
just brought in
repeat
friend.
guest we've had.
Yay! Breaking barriers.
So far, still the only one. Yeah. All right. Well, so we brought you in, Daniel. You're about to leave Hong Kong and
Yep.
going back to Europe, to your place where you normally
Shanghai.
live.
Shanghai. I had in Shanghai.
So yeah, we're actually lucky to have you. Just quickly before we get into the questions, how were your kind of confinement situation here in Hong Kong these past few months?
I wouldn't really call it confinement.
I call it confinement in terms that you were not able to go back home
yeah.
as soon as you wished.
Well, so I came down during Chinese New Year, so that was back in January, and my original plan was to stay here for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks is when everything blew up, and first in China, so I didn't really want to go back, and I was actually looking to go to Europe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then in the process of having my passport and everything sent over, Europe then blew up. So I would thought that Hong Kong was the best place to stay. And now we're on 6 months on, and I'm going to be leaving soon. So it's going to be July. Hong Kong's treated me really well. I've met a lot of collectors, made a lot of new friends. I think make the most of it. Launched the Waiting List podcast with a bunch of collectors here, and worked on a few other business projects here as well. So I've made the most of the time. Yeah, but I will miss the people here.
Yeah. Did you
Not
notice?
Not everybody, but some.
While looking along.
Some. Yeah.
Did you notice that the collector base here was different
It's
than
definitely
you
different.
expected?
It's definitely
Okay,
different.
right.
Yeah, Hong Kong is so small. So it seems that somebody does know somebody very, very quickly. The network is quite small.
That's for
and
sure.
Therefore, personally, I think the wealth circles are quite small. And because you have more established wealth, more generational wealth, there's more class systems. And therefore, I do think it's a little bitchier, to be honest, than what you would find in China. Because in China you have some new wealth. Generally most of it's new wealth. You haven't had all that time to filter out all this the way it is in Hong Kong. So I think maintaining the relationships here in the upper echelons is a bit tougher.
Right.
Yeah.
Than in Shanghai.
I see.
Yeah.
Is this the longest you've stayed in Hong Kong?
It is actually. Now you ask, it is. Before my parents are from Hong Kong, so I used to come back at least once a year. Sometimes it'd be 3 times a year.
Right.
But it was always for holiday, and it was really only to let me keep in touch with Chinese culture. But then when I decided to come back to Asia, I totally skipped Hong Kong and I went straight to Shanghai. So I've never spent a considerable amount of time here, but I do know it quite well. And obviously I speak Cantonese as well, so
Yeah.
so it's
helps.
quite good.
Long, we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah,
Do you want to share the story of how you guys first met?
We always tell people Tinder.
Yeah.
Because that is
Is
the
it?
truth.
Yeah.
No, it's
It
not.
is.
I actually messaged Dan, I think around August last year. I was going to Shanghai for, I think, a short break for my birthday. And then, I mean, the circle's small, right? So I knew Shoyo, I knew Andy Zhang.
Yeah.
And then, so Andy, I was supposed to meet Andy actually, but then Andy hurt his leg. So he was just like at home lying in bed.
Oh,
But he
I
was like,
do
you got to
remember.
meet Dan, you got to meet Calvin. So then that was the first time we met.
She stalked me.
Yeah, I did.
So you know how people
like,
leave
classy
comments
guy,
on your
right?
page, you know,
Like, slide
responding
into
to
your
your
DMs.
stories,
Yeah.
little emojis here and
Yeah.
there. I was like,
Dude, people are actually gonna believe this.
Well, no,
And
but
then she messaged me, and I thought, "Who's this?" You know, I'm not gonna lie. You know, I thought a hot chick. Why not? Yeah. But then she even brought her like good matey over,
Oh,
double
yeah,
hot chick.
I forgot about
and
that.
I was like, "Damn."
yeah, I made his
This is
day because I
good.
went with my
Yeah.
friend, and then my friend's hot,
Yeah.
so I made his day. And now he's stalking my friend.
oh, is it? Okay. But then it's
Yeah.
funny because it's pretty much how we met as well. Because
Yeah.
we were at the Philips auction, and
I
then
remember.
we saw her from like across the room, and then you messaged DM
and
me on like
I was
Instagram.
like, this person, like during auction, is just crazy on Instagram. Like clearly he's not here watching, and I was like, oh wait, never mind, he's working.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that at first.
Yeah, usually when I'm in auction room, I'm here to work.
Well, I
Yeah.
messaged you through Instagram, right?
Yeah. we
Yeah,
did
and
as
said
well.
meet up. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like nowadays it's kind of like an easy way to have like a first interaction with someone,
it's
and
great.
then if you see how they react to your message, they just like tell you to fuck off immediately. Like, okay, I don't need to spend time meeting them in
Yeah.
It's very powerful. I think it's different for Long because she is a girl and she has to be a bit more careful of who she meets.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's like, yeah, generally, I actually no, I still have to be careful. You get some weirdos out there, man.
I was like,
Oh, yeah.
you were gonna say.
What was the
Yeah,
weirdest direct message you've gotten?
Dude, tell them about the girl
Which girl?
in China when you first started, when you first met this girl. That
Oh,
come
man.
on, it's so
Okay.
funny.
Well, now you have to tell it.
so-
Tell the listeners
so-
about
But no,
the
yeah, you
risk
can't back
guy's
up, yeah.
face.
So basically, like, I also have like social media profile in China, and there was this person that messaged me. It was this girl, right? And obviously, you know, you go through the profile and you check the photos, and you do have a conversation. And you think, okay, she is actually interested in watches, right? And you know, as Lung Lung will know, she's an avid user of Facetune. You know, she doesn't
Okay.
look anything like what she does like in the photos. You know, this girl, you know, Chinese girls use Facetune like way more, like all these apps to modify the way they look. So I went into this coffee place. Actually, it was Baker and Spice,
Mm-hmm.
and she said she had arrived. So I went in. I couldn't see her. Right? I didn't know where she was. Right?
Okay.
So I was literally in the middle of the coffee place thinking, okay, where is she? And then I messaged her and she said, I'm in this corner, right? I'm like, right corner, I don't know. And I looked over that corner, I still couldn't see her. Right? And then she stood up,
Right.
yeah, and I was like, fuck. It was literally fuck, yeah. It was literally, damn, I've got to spend at least 2 hours with this. No, I mean, like with this girl, right?
Sorry, it's okay.
And yeah, it was just really, really tough, you know, because I realized she wasn't wholly into watches. I think she was more into me, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's not always fun, you know, when you have to deal with that. So I left in a hurry and I was like, I'm never doing that again.
What was your
Never do that
excuse?
again.
Diarrhea.
Well, by the way, yeah, if Lung ever says she's got bad stomach ache with diarrhea, it actually means
She doesn't
want
want
me
me
to.
Okay, I
Yeah, but she's so
No, it's
shameless that she can say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that you put it on air,
Yeah, they all know.
everyone's
I gotta
gonna
change
know.
it now.
Yeah.
She needs a new excuse now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like one thing that happened to me.
Okay.
Never again.
Hmm.
All right.
What about
so-
you, Long?
What about me? Like bad experiences?
Yeah, yeah.
You've had
Worst.
loads. You've had loads.
Yeah, I think, but generally along the line, it's the same thing. You talk to someone, you think they're into watches, so you're like super excited. Well, for me, I go through the Instagram and I think, is there a watch in there that I haven't seen? That's my motive of actually meeting someone on a very
Right.
selfish level, right? And then before you meet, you usually talk about what watch are you bringing. So I'll definitely say, please bring this watch, right? Sometimes I get there and it doesn't seem to be about watches, like whatsoever. And then there's a lot of talk about like showing off their cars and then showing off just wealth.
Right.
How long
And-
do you reckon it takes, like, before you realise it's not about watches?
I think 10 to 20 minutes, because
10 to 20
generally
minutes.
you can tell when someone's really nerdy, right? Like super
Yeah.
into watches.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they don't even say, hey, what are you wearing? You're already like, why am I
Yeah,
even
I think
here?
10, 20 minutes is long, man. I reckon like within a minute.
Well, you spent 2 hours.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be rude.
Were you stuffing
Yeah.
your face?
I don't want to be rude. I was drinking a lot of coffee.
Take another one. All right. I think we're gonna go back to maybe the beginning of the Shanghai Watch Gang.
Okay.
Because we have you. So I think it was probably 2 years ago or something. Waco, our founder, did an interview of you
That's
guys.
right, yeah.
And published a story in the magazine.
Yeah.
In the way he presents how you guys came about, it's a very kind of mafia story. I
Yeah,
would say.
it's pretty bad, yeah.
So okay, if I'm just gonna recap and tell me if I'm wrong along the way, you with Horror Loop and was it Calvinator, you guys met up because there was someone who was scamming the three of you,
Yeah.
and so you decided that you were gonna get back to this guy, and so you cornered him into an apartment, hired some people to kind of starve him out.
Well, that was actually,
This is how the story is actually told in the story.
This is actually that's what towards the, when we actually met up, right? It was already towards the end of the saga.
Okay, all right.
So we were actually having a laugh about it.
I see.
But generally what happened was I actually knew Kelvin personally. I had, like we go right back. I had heard about Austin through this scammer. I think for listeners' sake, we'll call him Bob, right?
Okay.
So this Bob, was scamming
Poor
people.
Bob's listening to this.
Like left, right, and center. Obviously, we didn't know. And his story was he was a professional racer, and he made his wealth through bicycles.
Okay.
So he made bicycles and sold them into North America. So he had 3 factories all dotted around China, and he was self-financing his race dream. And he was actually a racer. He had a car. That's how he met Austin. So he was kind of taking Austin's GTR on the track.
I see.
And that's how they met. And then he obviously knew I was into watches, and he knew Austin was into watches. It was so strange. We never actually met. He never actually facilitated a meet, right? So he would tell Austin that, like, I hated his watch.
Okay.
Yeah, and, he would tell me that Austin never had time. So obviously after a few times you stop asking. But I always knew about this Austin dude. And eventually it was pretty much like a Ponzi scheme that he was like running. And it came to like basically unravel. And as it was unraveling, the people that kind of knew of each other actually found how to link with each other. And that's when it just went even worse.
Okay.
And then for Bob, right?
Yeah, for Bob,
Yeah.
right.
So obviously he then owed a lot of people a lot of money. And so I won't say who, but we surrounded his house with people and confiscated his passport.
Okay.
And until he paid up. And then when he did, he left. He fled the country.
Oh, okay.
And then we decided to meet up afterwards and have a laugh about it. And that's when we realized we all liked watches.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it started.
That's a very unconventional story. To
Yeah.
meet
It's a
up
cool
and form a
story,
group of
though.
collectors.
It's
It was-
very cool.
but
Yeah.
Bob was an unbelievably talented scammer.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's not the type of people you want to be around.
Is Bob, because you said he was a racer,
Yeah.
right? Is he like petite and skinny, or is he like fat and big?
No, he's not fat and big. He's petite and skinny.
Okay.
He's actually from Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you're from, right?
I so knew that was coming.
He was Taiwanese Canadian, so you don't expect to be scammed by a Taiwanese Canadian
Right.
in China, right? You
Right,
expect
yeah,
to be
yeah.
maybe scammed by the locals, right?
Yeah.
So your guard is down. He was actually wearing fake watches, right?
Oh, no.
Oh.
So
Wow.
he
Did you
had
guys
a
know that?
AP Schumacher, right?
Yeah.
The thing was, right, when he brought it out, he never let it off his wrist, and we were
For
like,
you to check, right?
yeah, no, but his excuse was like, I don't really like taking it off in public. So I was like, okay, fair enough. Some people are like that. So I never saw it. But then one time I saw it, I did do a check, and the date window is not set in the right place because the movement's not the same, yeah? So I saw it
Yeah.
on the edge. But, I actually thought he was a collector. So I thought he'd bought a dud. So I was like, you've bought I think your watch is not real. Yeah. And then he was like, oh my God, all this kind of stuff. He obviously knew it wasn't real, but, you know, just playing it up, yeah.
I see. And then when did you guys decide to form Shanghai Watch Gang?
Well, that was when the three of us were there, we were like, let's do this, right? Well, we were having dry steak and whiskey, because down at Kelvin's like a private club. So it's very, very quiet, very, very discreet, down in Xintiandi, right? So central Shanghai. And we had such a great time that let's do this again. We didn't actually say, let's
form a
grow
group
it.
of collector.
So this is kind of like the magic of doing something like this. You know, you don't go out to do it, right? It just happened. And then very quickly, a Zangarator, so Andy.
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, he came to Shanghai for holiday. And then Austin brought him along. And there was like 4, and then it just kept on growing, and kept on growing, and more people came down and realized there was a real niche for this, because there was an issue. Well, brand events generally aren't much fun.
Right.
That was number 1. And 2, the way there is this discreetness because of the anti-corruption campaign in China. There was still a real need for collectors to flex either their watches or flex their knowledge in a crowd that they knew was safe.
Right.
Right. And because you're vouched by somebody that's coming in, everybody for them felt more comfortable bringing their pieces in a discreet place.
Okay.
Right. So that was the power of it, because people don't generally advertise this or publicly show their wealth in social media on China, because they don't want to make themselves a target.
Right.
So that's how it kind of came across.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
So from sort of like a watch, like a safe place for a watch gathering, you guys then went on to organize the Shanghai Watch Festival.
That's right.
Yeah.
So as the database grew more and more, and then, so I then started to post on Instagram some of these watches that were coming up, right?
Yeah.
And then very quickly, the brand started to contact me, and I was like really shocked, you know, like, and then it became quickly apparent that we were kind of the only outlet where the Swiss HQs could actually talk to the Chinese consumer, right, directly, without going through the layers, right?
Right.
Because we can speak English, you know.
Yeah,
I was
that's
brought up
probably
in
the main
England.
thing. Yeah.
I'm European, you know. Calvin, you know, he's from Australia.
Yeah.
Austin went to international school. So we had this talent. And obviously Andy and Austin's, their accounts were quite big. So they helped promote us as well, the whole group. And when the brands started to come in, they all wanted to do like events. As you know, you're in that kind of space yourself, right? It's all about database. What they want to do is they want to sell directly to the database, get the details, eventually sell to you, come to bring you down to an event, right? But the whole part of success of Shanghai Watch Gang was that it wasn't like that, right? So it wasn't like single events, because, you know, you go down to an event. I've said this many times. You go down to an event, you get sat next to some guy or girl that you don't know, right? I mean, if you're sat next to Lung, you're absolutely fucked. You know, you're just going to be eating your food quietly, listening to this dry conversation.
She might be eating your food as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Grabbing your food from your plate.
Exactly.
Thanks, guys.
Actually, all you guys who ever actually eat with Lung, don't even try and take any of her food. Have you seen that episode in Friends with Joey?
Yes.
Where he goes like, Joey doesn't share. That's like her. She gets real. That's it. It's done. She'll be gone in 5 minutes.
I gotta turn off, log out of my
Making you
Instagram
look
later.
bad. Sorry.
But going back to the brand events. So the brand events generally done in the week, right, where everybody's working. It's very formal, so you have to show up at like set time. Yeah. And then you have to like dedicate it 2 to 3 hours gone, right? Yeah. So it wasn't really flexible to the collectors in Shanghai, right?
Right.
And then we did it on the weekend. After lunch, you didn't have to stay for food. You could come late. You could come, leave early, no problem. You didn't have to dress up, right? And you knew who was there. You knew that they were watch collectors. part of the attraction of going to the brand events because you want to meet more watch collectors. Let's be honest, you can see the watches like either on the internet, or if you really want to see the watches, you're done in 10 15 minutes max.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need to sit there for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And then also listen to a PPT. The PPT is like one of the worst, right? Because it has all the information on the online anyway, right?
Yeah.
Also,
And
they're
then
just
you've got-
reading the stuff on the screen anyway.
Yeah,
You're like, I
right.
know
You've
this,
got a
yeah.
person like, and then you've got. Have you ever been to those ones where they ask you questions to make sure you listened to it, and then they
Yeah.
give you a prize?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like going back to school,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. I can do those, yeah.
Yeah, it's going back to school, and then you've got salespeople like in between, and you can't move from like, let's say you're stuck on the left side of the table, you see the conversations like really banging on the other side of the table. You can't just get up
Yeah.
and leave. I'll see
No,
you.
for
See you
sure.
later, mate, because
Yeah.
you're really boring. Yeah, and talk
Yeah.
and go over there. So that's how. So we didn't want to do that, right? And then we thought another thing is if we do that, all the people in the watch gang will think we're profiteering off them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were on a good thing here, and I didn't want to just do that and then stop
Just-
the growth,
Yeah.
right? Just see how far it goes, because the database game, it doesn't make that much money, right? And it's a tried and tested model that clearly doesn't work, right? So I didn't want to do that. I should say we didn't want to do that. And then, but it did make sense to do a Shanghai Watch Festival where you had all the brands what our vision is trying to make it actually a proper B2C event, or even a C2C event, right? Where you have consumers interacting with other consumers, right? Basically trying to update what a trade show should be.
Right.
What do we need to know from the brand? We don't necessarily need to know all your products, for example, all your SKUs, right? But what is it that differentiates Lange from Patek Philippe, yeah, or Longines? Because a lot of the consumers out there probably don't know, unless you're super, well, I wouldn't say super knowledge, but you have some knowledge. We're trying to do something for the watch industry, do something positive, and you definitely need to use this group of young trendsetters this way, rather than directly selling to them. They know the pieces. I mean, the collectors know the pieces. They know the prices. They can source around the world. Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to sell to them? They are so hard. They'll kill you on price. Yeah, and they won't budge.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't matter that you have so many millions. Right. It really doesn't matter. And when it comes to money, it's just money. A lot of people even see these watches as almost like a business thing. As an investment. I don't want to lose money. Like even the wealthiest collectors I know always have this mentality. So, I think it's really hard to directly sell, but you have to use this group in a different way.
Okay.
I see.
Yeah.
Fast forward to your time here in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
How and when did you guys decide to do the Waiting List podcast?
So, I thought obviously I was going to be here for 2 weeks, so it didn't happen in that 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I started to meet collectors. Obviously, I already knew Lung, but I didn't know her that well. I'd met her like twice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and we were still kind of questioning. Well, I was thinking, is he genuine? And he's also thinking, is she genuine? Or was it just one of those, you touch base, okay, see you in Shanghai, and you just see this person 1 year later?
Yeah,
right?
I think you should elaborate on that genuine thing, because
Yeah.
I don't think people will realize what necessarily you mean by that, and why you have to be careful, and the due diligence we all have to do.
Yeah, so generally I've honestly just picked this up quite recently, right? I used to think, okay, just go and meet the person, no harm. But then I realized it makes a huge difference before you meet the person to kind of message around and be like, what is this person like? Whether it's even worth meeting, because sometimes you just meet people who are just not on the same wavelength as you, right? And
Right.
it just ends
A
up
waste
being-
of time.
Yeah, a waste of time, right? When I met Dan, I felt like we connected like instantly. But then I'm also thinking, okay, is it fair to say we're both quite smooth in the sense that the other person probably wouldn't know if we found them like fucking annoying.
No.
So we'll always leave and people will be like, oh, they had a good time. But maybe we're like, no, that was
Right.
fucking bad, right? Wait, back to my point.
Yeah, we were trying to suss each other out.
Suss each other
Right.
out, right.
She asked some pretty digging
Dark- yeah,
questions,
yeah.
right? That was pretty much designed to
Read him.
test me, and I came through the test.
Yeah.
Right?
And then
Pretty much, right?
so we hung out like nearly every day. Like
Yeah.
so we just hung out all the time, and then we were meeting more. Oh, but then it links to Chester.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So I knew like halfway through February that I was going to be staying in Hong Kong, right? So I remember I was in one of these salad bars in Central, right? And it was raining, and I was just sitting looking outside the rain, like, what am I going to do?
Right.
Yeah. I'm like bored already. So I just messaged out there in my story, I didn't say who's free. I said something like that.
Who's in Hong Kong?
Who's in Hong
Who's
Kong?
around?
Because they want to say who's free, because I didn't want
Yeah.
a barrage, yeah?
Yeah.
So who's in Hong Kong, right? And 2 people messaged. And one of those was the Shanghai Watch guy, who's our mutual friend Chester. And so I was hanging out with Lung. I remember it was Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Valentine's Day. And I was like thinking, damn, if he's really weird, if I have dinner with him, that means I've got to sit myself for 2 hours, 3 hours potentially, right? I want to leave.
If you can get a table, it's Valentine's
But the thing is, I
Where
didn't
you
really
get
want
a
to go
table?
myself either, yeah? So when I was having dinner with Lung, I was like, I got to meet somebody. Do you want to come? Yeah. I kind of put her on the spot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the more the merrier. Also, it feels like the situation is less like formal when you have more than 2 people.
Yeah, you can diffuse the situation.
Yeah,
Well,
we can
talk
just like
to-
throw
yeah.
a question to like someone and just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of escape something. So,
But you
what do
could definitely
think?
escape easier, because some guy can say that the person that didn't set the meetup, right, can
Oh,
say,
yeah.
I've got to go, by the
Yeah.
way. Do you
Yeah,
want to come?
yeah.
And then that person can go, because they don't
I
have
see.
that relationship with that person. It's not that,
Yeah.
not that bad, right?
Yeah.
So Chester replied, then we met Chester for cigars, and I still remember, I didn't know what this guy was like. She definitely didn't
Yeah.
know. She was going because of me. Yeah. And as soon as we walked into the cigar place, he was wearing this fish market,
Oh yes, I do
Japanese
remember
fish
from you.
market
Yes,
jacket,
Instagram,
right?
yeah.
From the Tsuchiki Japanese fish market, right?
Right.
And I was like, fuck. Yeah, fuck. Yeah. And I could feel Lung's eyes burning through my back, right? You
What did you
fucking
do? What did you
idiot.
bring me? What is this?
And he was wearing a code 1159.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just made it worse.
Yeah, which was like, yeah. But, I respect all collectors. Just, I don't really care what you collect, as long as you have passion in it, right? So we quickly established a connection with Chester.
Yeah.
Spoke a lot, and I realized, he's actually really into watches, right? And so we started. He had a lot of free time too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of us had a lot of free time, and then I also knew Alex,
Yep.
and we then were we're getting kicked out from place to place. We're in the Four
Can you
Seasons,
explain that?
right?
Because the places are closing.
Oh, okay. It's not because you guys
you
are
were
being
rowdy
reckless
or
in all
anything.
places.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were
You're just staying very late until.
Yeah, that's right. We're staying so
I see.
late because we don't have any friends. We just have each other. And we were in the Four Seasons in the lobby.
Yeah.
That's where we ended up, right?
Yeah.
And then we were just chatting about watches, right? Just chatting about watches. And we were thinking, I wonder if people would actually like listening to this. There isn't a platform that actually, where it's mainly collector based. It's mainly just media based. And there are some truths that come from collectors
Yeah.
that perhaps if people were a fly on the wall, would they like this? Yeah, so we're like, okay, let's do it. And then, that's how it came by.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And we were talking about the waiting list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the topic we were talking about. We were talking
Right.
about whether it exists or not, right? So we were debating amongst 4 of us, I don't think it exists. I think it's bullshit. Some people say, well, I think there is kind of like a waiting list. That's why it's called the Waiting List Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a reason why you guys chose podcast as a medium as opposed to say like YouTube or anything else?
Well, look at Dan's face.
That's coming later, I'm sure.
Because I mean, like,
Do you want to elaborate on that, though? What do you mean by that?
No, nothing.
Yeah.
Because podcast is also sort of it's not a medium that's very popular yet in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I don't know how popular it is in China or if it even exists yet.
It exists in China, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not a popular medium.
But yeah, so it's mainly like in the States or in Europe that people listen to podcasts.
Well, I think with podcasts is, I think you can go a lot deeper into topics. If you look at YouTube, if you look at articles now, so as a collector, I look at a lot of articles, right? But now there's so much content out there. I really have to pick all the stuff, and I'm not really interested in every single watch, right? So you've got your Instagram with your fast media, you've got your in-depth with the blogs, you've got your YouTube if you want to see the movement. The YouTube videos are going down to 10-15 minutes max now, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much you can really go into depth-wise, and I think the collectors and consumers, their time is very limited, right? With YouTube, you have to actually, because you're watching it, designate that time, 15 minutes. We're all looking at how long it is. If it's like an hour, you're never going to watch it, right? But with podcasts, you can actually be doing something and have it in the background and pick up a few things, right? And actually go deeper in that topic.
Yeah.
So that's why we thought, yeah, that's it. And also, you know, doing video requires more production. I just thought, we don't know if this idea is going to work. You know, let's just try what we can. And the feedback's been really good.
Yeah.
Like really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the main issue with videos also that I found is the stiffness that people immediately display as soon as a camera is pointed at them.
100%. I mean,
So-
even with podcasts, you see it. They get nervous. People who are usually very confident, you
Right.
pass them the mic and they're like, "Oh, can we see the questions first?" And it's like, no, this is supposed to just be
Yeah.
like like there's a fly on the wall and they're just
Right.
listening in.
But once you
Yeah.
start a conversation, like it's easier for them to get into a more like casual feeling
Yeah.
where they would actually give you better answers than if they want video.
Yeah.
Because on
that's
video,
true.
everything is very corporate.
Yeah.
And also like filling up, I guess like illustration images in a video that's like 20 minutes long is really hard because you need to find like the right.
Yeah.
Because you can only do like a certain shot for maybe like 2 to 3 seconds on screen. And then
Yeah.
you can't repeat that same image
Yeah.
too often in the same video. So that's very like video production is hard. I know.
It is hard.
And then the collectors as well, they all like to be discreet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily want to show their face.
That's right. Yeah.
But they... what we found is people love talking about themselves, don't they?
Yeah. That is like one human trait that you're just like, that's been consistent.
Right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
can definitely tell. It's not something we thought about, but people like to... Even when they want to be discreet, they still want to flex.
Yeah.
Right? If they want to flex their story, they want to flex how good they are, they want to flex their watch. People
Yeah.
like talking about themselves.
Mhm.
And our job is to try and find the story that is actually interesting.
Yeah.
Because anybody can flex. I don't really care now.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people flex in front of us now, and we just don't care now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We've seen most of the pieces. We've seen amazing, insane collections. We're very fortunate to be in that position. And I think it's really important that we also add is, you know, me and Lung are not like the biggest ballers out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like totally, really not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I definitely underline how fortunate we are to see some of these pieces that we see, and we welcome like all types of collectors. I don't really care like
Right.
if you could have like a whole collection of G-Shocks or swatches. Yeah, cool. If it's Filippo Loretti, then probably not. You can go and find Lung. Lung's really into those. She's got about 10, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Just sitting at home.
So who would you say was the most interesting conversation you guys have had
Oh.
on
We're
your
gonna have
podcast?
yeah, like different.
Well, me and Lung
I-
have a very similar taste
Yeah.
Right.
in what we enjoy, right? But you go
I'm
first.
I'm very sure about this. Like Alex is part of the podcast, right? For me, so how it works is we in the group chat we decide who we're going to interview, and whoever wants to interview that person the most will draft the questions, right? So with Alex, I had not seen the questions, so Dan drafted the questions. So I went in with an open mind. I only know Alex. I wouldn't say I knew Alex that well back then. So when I went in, I was like, okay, just listening to Alex's story. But it's one of the best episodes, I think, in my mind. Like,
Okay.
it's moving, it's like gripping, inspirational. And at the end of it, there's no way anyone can listen to that and not think, wow, I want to meet this guy. Like, this guy makes me want to work really hard. And I think that was the other beauty. Like, as the podcast evolved, it was not just about collectors saying, hey, I picked up this and I picked up this and I picked up this. It was just that, like, well, I have this theory that generally if you buy watches, you're probably making a few right decisions in life, right? For you to be making some money to buy watches, right? So as you're listening to these people's story of how they like made it or like how they're progressing in life, you do pick up 1 or 2 tips. So when you listen to people like Alex and how they have made money, right? It's just truly amazing. Like, I was blown away. Like, when I was listening, I was just like, I couldn't even focus and think, okay, what's the next question? I was just really into it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we generally have like one person that asks the questions, like Long said, and then one person that actually responds right there and then. Because obviously the person that wrote the questions knows what's coming.
Yeah.
The other person on the team doesn't.
Yeah.
So they're literally responding to what that person is saying there and then.
Yeah.
So it might be what the listeners want to actually ask.
Right.
Right. So we have that kind of organic. We're trying to keep it as organic as possible. Yeah.
What was your favorite episode?
My favorite episode. Certainly Alex's one, because it also came very early on in the podcast, right? It's like number one. We were really pumped after that one. We knew it was a good one, right? And like Lung said, we actually did go through with some collectors on, what did you get this piece? It didn't work. Like, it was so dry. I don't think people wanted to listen to that. And going forward, even on the marketing side, why do we have like KOCs, KOLs, right? I think it's because people actually resonate with the person and then the watch, not the watch and then the person, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's lots of different type of collectors out there, so many different types of people, what they do, so many different industries. I'm personally very fascinated in, like, if it's a different industry, I was like, that's how that works, right? I didn't realize. So that whole story is really, really strong. If there are particular pieces that has a very particular story, then we're always willing to listen. But if it's just like, I bought this, I mean, there's not really anything to listen to.
Yeah.
Right? So, Alex. To be honest, there's a few good ones coming up that personally, Long Long's one.
Thanks.
Is one that she really went naked and bare. Unfortunately, not literally, but in her story, it was really quite, I would say, a little bit emotional. Because I know her quite well now. Well, I like to think I know her quite well. So I know how difficult it would be to be that open, and it was, and people know us from Instagram, and as you know, Instagram being a fast media platform, people make quick judgments on you, but then I think they'll be really surprised to actually hear what she has to say.
Okay, and when is that coming out?
Ask Lung, because she's in charge of when things drop.
I'll probably put mine like last.
You gotta build up the excitement.
But it was a two podcast thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Two parts.
Two parts, yeah.
Awesome.
There was a lot to talk about,
Yeah.
We're looking
that was
forward to
cool.
it.
Thanks. We'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
And I want to add, like, Alex's one, we had so many, we didn't announce it. We just like silently started uploading stuff, right? And people started messaging. And they were also messaging Alex directly, saying that they want to meet him. And they were younger kids. So it actually worked in the sense that we did inspire people, I like to think.
Because there is a key point, actually, to take away that I didn't mention before. Shanghai Watch Gang gave Asian collectors a sense of identity, right? So it isn't just based in Shanghai. Actually, we have people in Indonesia, Australia, Europe, Canada, the US, right? Similar background, Chinese, right? Where most of the media out there is from a Western point of view. So when you read like Hodinkee, it's really like subculture, pop culture of America, right? It's not Asian. When Asian collectors meet, there's a sense of brotherhood, or sisterhood as well, where you can suddenly switch into Chinese and you convey not just what you're trying to say, but a sense of you're from the same family. And that was really, really strong, right? And so people started to identify with this, and then they really wanted to be part of this group.
Right.
And I think it's the same with the Waiting List podcast, right? Because it will eventually, our plan is to do collectors in Shanghai. So there'll be Mandarin-based podcasts,
Okay.
Cantonese-based podcasts. And we also want to go to Singapore.
I want to say Singlish.
Singlish.
I was avoiding that.
Yeah. No, I can't
Singlish
wait
podcast? Yeah,
because I
that's
can't
right.
wait to bring him and let him do the conversation, like him with his British accent.
So it's really a platform for Asian collectors. So I think that identity is so strong. Yeah.
Because then before, if you look at the Chinese market, maybe people were considering Asian collectors as just potential buyers and people with money, and they were not looking at their emotions or personal sides as much, which is what you guys are trying to kind of bring out with the interviews. And
that kind of fucked me off, basically.
Yeah.
Like, when something annoys you, it's a great motivator in life, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just getting annoyed by the fact that, maybe I was like extra sensitive to it as well. It's just, you felt that in the luxury space, a lot of brands, they don't really care about you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like they really don't care. They just want to make money off you, right?
Yeah.
Which is fair enough because it's a business. But luxury isn't quite like that as well. And you feel like you're just going in there, you're just a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to feel special, right? You didn't feel special, right? You go outside you go to Paris, you go to London, you just feel like another number. And I didn't think there was an appreciation for Asian collectors. Actually, they are a bit deeper than this.
Mm-hmm.
They have knowledge, they have quirks, they have traits, they have their own characteristics, why they buy like this. That whole understanding was not there.
Right.
Yeah, and even I speak to a lot of the brands now on a higher management level. I think it's given us an opportunity to really talk to the brands so that they understand, this is why Chinese behave the way they do. They have a better understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I'm, personally proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a Chinese specific thing, or do you, like Long, do you see this happening in, say, Singapore or in Hong Kong?
Do you mean with the collectors struggling to voice out?
It's just the perception,
Yeah.
I guess, of collectors.
I think generally Asian people aren't very expressive, right? Or they might think a lot of stuff, but we're brought up to not have these very open and honest, like, conversations, even with our parents, right? Like, there's a lot of resentment and like pain and everything that you just don't work through, right? And I think what I have seen, just based like from the episodes in Hong Kong, you have to basically set the questions up in a way that kind of like milk the answers and the thoughts out. But then it's also about communicating to the interviewee what is the vision, instead of being like, today we're going to interview you, you're going to talk about your watches. They need to understand what's the end goal for us, that we want to, as a community, be a voice that eventually people in Europe and other parts of the world will listen to, right? And then what we have seen is, for example, you get one entrepreneur, he does it, and then he feels hyped up, like happy, right? He feels like, wow, I'm contributing to this voice. And then his friend is like, hey, I want to do it too. So instead of us having to chase people now, you see a chain reaction where people feel like they're part of a movement, which I think is very beautiful, right? They actually want to do it. And then when they, like in the beginning, everyone's like uptight, when you first start the interview, and then you can see them open up. And then you can see that by the end of it, they're like, wow, that was really fun. And yeah, that's my favorite part. Like, I love to see that. You can see that they are slowly coming out of the shell. Yeah.
Yeah, well said.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, in your opinions, both of you, which watch brand has done a good job in sort of like promoting itself or appealing
to Asian collectors,
to Asia collectors,
without treating them as just another dollar sign, like you said?
Which brand do you think out there understands the Chinese mentality or the Asian mentality?
From the top of my head, I want to say none.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not
fair.
saying that no change is happening. It just takes so long. And I can see, we have mutual friends that work in the industry. We know what's happening. And we hear it and we're like, that's great, right? But as of now, I can't think of a single brand. Like, as a Chinese, I will walk in and be like, wow, that's amazing.
I kind of would echo those thoughts.
Okay.
I think it's already come a long way, but it isn't exactly where we would want it to be.
Right.
Certainly, I think, first of all, the independent brands, because they're smaller and you directly engage with higher management straight away.
Yeah.
They're more flexible as well, so
Right.
they can adapt to new things. So, in the second year of Shanghai Watch Festival, we had a very clear vision of what we wanted to do to show these watches, right? Which was combining these things with stuff that is Asian, like, you know, Urwick was combined with Iron Man. It was also combined with Gundam, you know, this kind of thing, right? Because it has that futuristic kind of look.
Yeah.
Urwick actually just said, do you know what? When it comes to creative stuff, you just do it. Don't tell us. Just do it. Debbie Thune was the same as well.
Right.
They would just do it because they saw in the first year how successful we were at communicating their product to the Chinese market, to the young generation. So like, you obviously know better than us. Just go ahead and do it.
Okay.
So they were really, really good. MBNF, Max was, you know, he's really, when it comes to marketing, a bit of a genius, right? So he also saw how this was, because he came in the second year. I think then, you know, he learns very quickly, observes a lot. So again, he had thoughts. So people like in the independent brands are more flexible to change. With the bigger brands from the bigger conglomerates, there's too many middle management. And there's too many middle management that, to be honest, aren't passionate about watches. They don't really care, right? It's really hard as a collector then to have respect for that brand. Yeah, because you're talking to people where you know too much. So a lot of even the sales process is not sales led, right? And they then have to fulfill their KPIs, right? Or what they, on the media exposure, their sales, all of that kind of stuff, which makes it really hard to change what you're currently doing, right? So that's the toughest challenge we face, where we have to demonstrate all the time, this is the way forward, and try and convince brands this is the way forward. Yeah, it'll take a long time because Swiss watch industry generally they don't like to change that much.
Yeah, they're that very slow.
They're that very slow. But having said that, I think that's where the opportunity is, because if you looked at any other industry in China, we wouldn't even be talking. You know, they're so ahead. You know what they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like fashion, it's just so ahead with how they leverage social media. I think that's where the opportunity is for us in watches. Yeah.
I actually met the other day. I met this girl. She's Chinese, and she worked at Richemont. And hearing her story, so long story short, she left the watch industry. She's been working there since right after uni. She left to go into property, and I asked her why, and she said the only reason she was doing it was because she, being Chinese, completely understood how Chinese people consume and spend money. She went to the middle management, upper management. Nobody was listening to her. And then she said, I realized because I'm a Chinese girl, so now I got to go prove myself outside, work in a big company in property, right? And then one day go back and say, see, I told you.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, these are the barriers, like as a Chinese working in the industry that she's facing. So, and then consumers are not speaking up. So I said to her, right, I said, yeah, it's tough, but if nobody does it, like including herself, if nobody actually moves forward and just make some noise, right, we're just never going to progress. So I'm happy like Shanghai Watch Gang, like all this stuff is happening because somebody needs to go first. Yeah.
Yeah, and my short education in the watch industry, which I have like totally enjoyed, by the way. Sounds like I'm like being really negative, but I'm not. I've really enjoyed. I've loved meeting people like yourselves. People in the watch industry, there's some really special people in there. It really is what keeps me trying to push frontiers in the watch industry. I forgot what I was going to say now.
Great.
Oh yeah, like no, I forgot what I was going to say.
Just basically, you want to say that it's a long journey, but you just got to make that move first.
Yeah, it is a long journey. But I remember what I was going to say. Is in the short education, what I've realised is obviously higher management are mostly non-Chinese, right? So I didn't really see that changing, right, anytime soon. So the pressure is on us. Yeah, the challenge is on us to demonstrate that, and the best way to demonstrate that is through power, and power is gained through sales. Right, so if you can demonstrate sales, and on the mass kind of level, then you have 话语权, like you have a right to talk, right? So that will be actually probably somewhere that we will look to expand.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's once we demonstrate that, right, and you have that power, then the brands have to listen. Do you know what I mean? They have to kind of take notice, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully then we can change things for the better.
Right.
But it's very unfortunate that it has to be like that. You know, I wish they would just listen, you know?
Yeah.
But I have to demonstrate that, which is why a lot of people have probably, they've come up to me and said, you know, why don't you work for a brand? It's because I don't want to limit myself, because I wouldn't be able to express myself if I did work for a brand. Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some brands that you love today?
Both of you.
Yeah.
I love AP. I love Alange. Dan, what about you?
I love Lange.
Yeah.
I probably put that really high up. I've met with most of their higher management. They supported us in the first year Shanghai Watch Festival, where I wouldn't say no big brand wanted to, but for a brand like that to take a punt on us, I'll never forget that. Right? You just cannot forget people that gave you a chance, gave you a break. And they came for the second year. And personally, the brand itself, what it stands for, really resonates with me. How discreet it is, but the quality is, I think we all know, is like it's one of the best, like if not the best. Doesn't shout about it. Low production numbers. Classic design. I just really love Lange, and I've had the fortune to meet Wilhelm, and I really like how he is as a person, and as a watch collector, collecting watches now, it's the people. I go back to it. It's the people that wear these watches that actually influence me now. Not this watch is really cool, but sometimes you see this watch is really cool and then some douchebag is wearing it and you kill them. I don't want to buy it anymore, right?
Yeah.
But with Lang, it's always been quite positive.
Okay.
All right.
And what are some brands that you used to love but you've fallen out of love with?
You're gonna get upstairs. No, I'm kidding.
I actually used to like Hublot. I had a Big Bang.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I remember 2010-ish, like a lot of basketball players, rappers, everyone had one, and I was like, wow, that's it. And then they kept coming up with all these like limited editions. Like I even remember they had an art one with art one, leopard one. They had everything, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. But I don't think I'm a big fan now.
But then did you stop liking it because of just the marketing aspect?
No, because the more you look at watches, then you realize, oh my God, what am I, like, you start to look at the movement, right? You start to look at the finishing. I liked it because it was hefty, like the weight.
Right.
I thought it's nice to have that feeling like
a
you're
big
wearing
watch.
something. And it is a big watch. It is somewhat masculine looking. It had a rubber strap, and then it just felt like, well, you could wear this from night to day kind of thing. But then I was in a very different mindset. Like, I was just buying because it looked good with my outfit rather than what is the history. I never even went on the site, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay.
But now I think I'm over the Hublot phase. Yeah.
I mean,
What about you,
Hublot to me is interesting. I had a chance to recently kind of do some research, and sure, because they make, I guess, a large amount of watches, and obviously you can't compare certain movements and finishing with other brands, like higher brand. But then if you look at the kind of scientific research that they do on the side, like just themselves as a company, they do a lot of scientific research that they provide to just external industries, not just related to the watch industry. So that part of the brand that interests me probably the most. That's something also that Mr. Beaver was heavily, I guess, passionate about.
That's cool.
And then it's still something that they do, you know, like all this stuff with sapphires, the different materials, the ocean exploration, space exploration. So
they do come up with cool materials. I
think it's just maybe the final product, or
well, it's not that. It's just like if you ask people, I mean, even me myself, I do think the marketing is very loud. And if you talk to some people inside the brand, they will tell you, yes, Hublot is very much this big, like, large window of marketing that we have, but behind this is all the stuff that we do, and this is what people should kind of dig inside and take a look at it. So unfortunately, marketing, but that is their identity. But like any brand, if you just like look into it, you'll find something cool that you like.
For me, I would actually say AP,
Okay.
right? And when I was starting on this journey, AP was like really, really high in my estimation, right? With Patek, the Holy Trinity, and I put Lange in there as well, right? I still love their watches, but the way that brand is, it doesn't particularly resonate with me.
Okay.
But I appreciate the craftsmanship and dealing with people in AP. Yeah, it definitely does talk to me like that.
Right.
But as the general branding stuff, it doesn't. But I appreciate, they need to do it because they have to differentiate themselves from, let's say, Lange and Patek, or particular Patek, right? They can't really go down that route because they're just fighting Patek. But the way that brand is, it doesn't really talk to me. But I would still like to have my double balance.
Yeah, this one, yeah. I can see
But
that.
yeah, because the watches are great.
Yeah.
But it's one. I've always been there for the watches,
Mm-hmm.
and having dealt with, there's so much marketing spiel on the thing. It does. It's not important for me, but the watches, AP,
Okay.
is something I would like to have.
Okay. On to questions about sort of just your collecting habits and stuff. How did you fall into the rabbit hole? Do you remember
I
how it
still
started?
don't think I'm that bad, honestly.
You're pretty bad.
I feel like I'm quite disciplined.
I don't think you are.
No, but then you never really think about it until someone points it out to you, and you're like, wait, I am pretty bad.
Well, it depends. So what was the
yeah.
most recent watch you bought, for example?
Lange. So
Not
that's
at the
already
Philips
not
auction.
this year. That was from Lange was last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, so it's like you're not someone who buys like every 2 months or
Because I feel
every
like
month.
when I compare myself to people who buy all the new releases, who chase the auctions, who are also actively hunting for those like limited
Old-
vintage
I
pieces,
see,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm not that bad.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'm always, but I know I have, I know that I'm obviously into it because I start to budget things for watches. So you start to
Right.
say, okay, I'm
Right.
going to save on clothes for watches. Then I'm like, okay, maybe I do like watches a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I kind of got into watches when I started to make a bit of money and started to fall into all the luxury trappings like cars, bespoke menswear, holiday, all that
Yeah.
kind of lifestyle.
Was there anyone
Eventually-
before in your family who was
No.
interested? No, so it was you.
No,
You're the
no,
first
yeah,
one.
totally nobody.
Okay.
But there was a Swedish dentist, colleague of mine, that he bought a few watches, and then I thought he always dressed quite cool, and I really liked his sense. So one day, he just brought this watch over, and we were having dinner, and he was telling me about it, and I knew, fuck all what he was talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need to educate myself. And that's when I started to read about watches, and then, I was screwed. Screwed from that moment, yeah. Totally
Yeah.
screwed.
I know the feeling. We're in there.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating topic, right?
Yeah.
I had an appreciation for shoes, menswear, but watches is a totally different level. Yeah. And I just thought, it's amazing.
Does Lange come fairly soon when you start learning about watches, or is that something?
No, it came very late.
Okay.
So you read about certain brands, right?
Yeah.
So I think, let's say Vacheron. We all appreciate, Vacheron, Holy Trinity, make great watches, right? But I don't think there's a really full deep appreciation of what they actually do,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just
Yeah.
see it mentioned here, and so you accept that, because these people say it's good, it must be good. But you're not actually spending time looking at it potentially, right?
Yeah.
Lange was like that for me. So you see it on the blogs, Lange's should be in the Holy Trinity, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
never actually spent time looking in the
Yeah.
brand.
Mm.
And it was only when they came in for the Shanghai Watch Festival that I thought, okay, I'm going to buy one. Yeah.
Okay.
So I love to signify certain points in my life with watches. And that was a milestone. So I thought, okay, I'm going to buy one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to read into it, and I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And also, one of the pluses with Lange is the movement finishing.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
it's you don't understand what movement finishing is at the start of your journey. Yeah, you don't even know what you're looking at, right? Just this person says it's cool, and you're like, yeah, it's cool. You don't know what you're saying, talking about.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But then not only through you get that education, and you have an appreciation of angulage, you know, CNC, Côte de Genève, all that kind of stuff, right? And then like pushes and all this kind of stuff. It's a accumulation of little small steps.
Yeah.
And you have an appreciation of what
Yeah.
Langer is, which is, to be honest, their charm.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to.
Like
By the way, I don't take any money off Langer like for marketing. But what I'm saying,
No, it's totally like
This
this. Like,
episode
longer,
is
you have
not
to find it
sponsored
yourself.
by
you have to
Yeah.
find it yourself.
Yeah, you have to find it yourself.
And that's why it's a connoisseur's watch.
Yeah. Right. It's
Because
not totally.
people who buy this Langer, they're not that bothered about the brand name.
Yeah.
What they actually search for is quality
Yeah.
and for like a good price, right? And for what you get, it is good value, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what the charm is.
Okay. Do you remember your first watch that you bought for yourself?
Yeah, I still wear it sometimes. J12. Yeah. It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah.
When did you get yours? The J12?
Right after uni.
Okay.
First job. I always wanted it, but when I was in uni, the black ceramic and the white ceramic were the most popular. But then when I left uni, it was when they launched the chrome one. So
Right.
it was titanium, and then they coated it and everything. So light, scratch proof, and I was like, wow, this one's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the J12 does have an interesting movement as well, depending on when you bought it, because some of their
Yeah.
movements are made by APRP.
Yeah, but those are usually the Tobions.
Yeah.
Which I was like, well, no. And their Tobions are very expensive. Like at that price point, I would just buy AP.
That's true.
Yeah.
What about
Okay, my
your
first watch was an
watch?
Amiga Seamaster 300,
Nice.
Pierce Brosnan.
Nice.
Wave dial, blue face, diver's watch. Yeah, that was my first watch. That I bought, yeah.
The quartz version?
No, I had the
Okay,
automatic
you had the
version.
automatic,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not. I was at that time when I'm not touching quartz.
No.
Yeah, not doing that.
Because the one he actually has in GoldenEye is the quartz version of it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
He wears the quartz version.
Yeah, well, this one's the cool. So it's the first time that in that movie GoldenEye that I saw a watch being used as like a spy object. Because like GoldenEye at that time was the first James Bond movie that I've seen. So I was too young to have seen the previous ones before. So when you see like just like him with the laser, it's just damn, that's fucking
It's
cool.
a great marketing thing because he's like, he might not be the perfect man for women, but a guy wants to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, he's like touches everything. So
Yeah.
when you look at him and you think, oh, I want to be like that, and you see
Yeah.
him wearing a watch like that,
Like,
you
I
think,
want that
I
watch.
need to have that watch.
Yeah.
And then after you go back in the old James Bond movies and you have like the Rolexes with like magnetic where he unzips the that's dope.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's always got to do with chicks, hasn't it? Let's be
Of course.
honest. Yeah. If the watch gets you the
Guys.
chicks, damn. I mean, like RM. Get down to the nightclub wearing RM. Boom.
Long and I are just awkwardly laughing.
Yeah.
Like,
Good luck with that.
Right. And so when since you first started collecting, how did your taste change? Like, what's the stuff now that you start gravitating towards to more?
So I've always collected quite eclectically.
Okay.
So I've never focused on one brand. And I would like to say I've kind of stayed true to myself. So I haven't followed hype, which has been really difficult, to be honest. One thing about the watch community is you do get to see a lot of watches you wouldn't see. And therefore to have... you don't own the watch, but you sometimes get to experience the watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So you might have had a longing for a Nautilus. Over a sustained time, though, you realize, oh, actually, I don't want it. You know, something like that. Right? And I don't really want to own it. Yeah. So through that, you get a shared experience through the community. And so it's probably prevented me going, like, getting buyer's regret. I mean,
Right.
my latest purchase is actually, I haven't seen the watch yet, is a Shanghai military watch, right?
Okay.
That was commissioned to the PLA back
Right.
in the 1960s.
Like
They
the
made-
brand Shanghai.
Yeah, the brand
Okay.
Shanghai. So they made 30,000 only for the commanders of the PLA.
That's cool.
So it's a very, very hard watch to find, and I found it with the bracelet, which is apparently the bracelet's harder to find than the watch, right? So historical significance, it's really battered because the quality really isn't there, but it has an immense story. And I think it cost me, I don't know, like 2,000 RMB or something like that, maybe even less.
Right.
I can't remember, right? But yeah, I don't really look at. I think at watches at all price points, there's something there, and it's not always, obviously when you pay more affordable prices, perhaps you're not looking at the movement, you're looking more at story. Yeah, looking at more
for
of the
sure.
history, right? Maybe design, right? But then obviously when you go to different, you're just using different categories to assess watches.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like my latest purchase.
Okay.
Well, you said the Longimatic was your most recent one.
Yeah, but I think
Has your taste changed?
Oh, sorry, how
Or
has your
evolved?
taste
my
changed? Yes.
taste changed. I think I'm more sure about not, I'm more careful with not buying hype pieces. Not hype pieces, hard to get pieces. So the more something's hard to get, the more I'll really question, do I really want that piece because it's hard to get, or it's actually that amazing
Right,
of
you
a
start
piece?
questioning yourself.
Yeah, and so now what I try and do is I'll always think to myself, if I want a piece, I'll think, can I live without this piece? Will I still want to wear this piece in five years? I mean, I'll check with Dan. I'll say, do you think this looks good on me? And yeah,
So she looks good in everything,
No, but
especially in yellow gold.
Yeah, I hate. So
Oh, yeah,
I
you
really
love
want a
your
steel
yellow-
piece, by
your
the
yellow
way.
gold.
But every time I see there's a gold version of that steel
You're
piece,
like,
I'm
"Oh,
like, I
just
gotta
take the
get the gold one. But yeah,
Might be easier to get
yeah.
also in gold.
I definitely want to move into indies, by the way.
Okay.
I really, really
Yes.
want to move into indies, but I really don't want to do it just because I need to post it on Instagram. I want it to be like, I've been looking for it for a while, and then I find that piece that's like, wow, I feel like this is made for me. I want that
No,
feeling.
totally.
Yeah.
Do you guys go to TST often, or sort of like
Like the gray
the
dealers
gray
or
dealers
the
to look for watches?
Yeah. This AP I'm wearing was from TST, right? I like to go, but I'm very selective, who I go with, because I think it does take it's actually a long time. You say you're just going to go there and pop in, but then you end up going from one to another to another.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it also helps going with people who know watches, because they can point out stuff I don't know about other brands.
Right.
Because I think I'm pretty okay with AP, but then when you're talking about other brands, especially like Rolex,
Oh,
I know
well,
too
the
little.
worst.
Yeah.
you
I
need to
enjoy
know
it, yeah.
so much about
Yeah.
Rolex. You know, just
Especially the
Good.
vintage ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's crazy.
Well, I think for me, I mean, I've got such a decent resources when it comes to getting watches that I don't really would think I have to go to I mean, I know the TST guys anyway, so I don't really need to go down and
They'll just tell you when something new.
yeah, and also the way I collect watches isn't so spontaneous, so it's very well thought out. So it's irrelevant on what the auction prices are. It's irrelevant what actually even came out. It's irrelevant what the hype it is. I'm very kind of focused on what my next pieces will be, right? And that's all that really matters. Because everything else I'll read about it, but I really know what I actually want, right? So just because it comes out, it doesn't make that much difference to me. Yeah.
okay.
But on sort of just women collecting watches, because the community is still so much dominated by men. Long, do you feel that there are barriers in joining the watch community?
Yeah, I mean, even now, I'm confused how it works for girls joining. How... First of all, there's not enough people, so there's not enough girls that will message each other and say,
Yeah.
hey, let's meet up. And then within the bunch of girls that do like watches, to me, I've categorized them into such a diverse group. There's people who are really nerdy. If you really meet me, right, I need a loop. I need to sit there and I need to not talk so much. So if I go to the auction houses to look at
Right.
watches, I actually don't enjoy saying, hey, to all these friends, right? I need to go there to look at something.
Okay.
So, but then there's a lot of girls that need to talk, right? To them, it's more like building community where they can connect and they can talk about other things like family, kids, and everything.
Right.
So I think on that basis alone, it's hard for girls to connect. And the other thing is, it's hard to find girls with a wide range of different tastes, because right now most of the girls I know, they will probably think they're grill. I don't know. This is really mean, right? I think they will say Daytona Rose Gold or something that they see like Victoria Beckham wear, right? Or some KOL wears, right? So I think it's not that it's hard. It's just that they don't know where to start, and there's not enough stuff online for them to kind of be influenced. Yeah. What about you, Dan?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, I think London's doing a great job. Like,
Thank you.
Stepping out there, putting herself there. There are like certain hazards and risks by doing that she totally takes on the chin, right? And she does it to try and promote lady collectors. So we have to emphasize that. So well done, London.
Thank you.
It's still a very new area that I'm observing. The way men collect watches might not be how ladies collect watches. So the parameters might not be the same, right? They might, I want to look, I want a huge collection. I want it to look good because I really want to accessorize. And you know what? That's okay. Because even some men collect like that, right? Maybe they don't really care about the small details. I'm just saying maybe, right?
Yeah.
And right now, I think we're still observing what's actually happening. But certainly, I think that recently, in the last year or so, London being an example of that, lady collectors are stepping out and having more of a voice and having more of confidence to share that voice, almost going toe to toe with men, right, and not being afraid. So again, this is very interesting phenomenon, and obviously there are a lot of now lady high management in the brands,
Right. Yeah.
so I think that they can also, they're already doing a lot, so I think well done to them as well. But I think it's, we still have to see.
Right.
I mean, yeah. But it's great. It's great. Any more people getting into this hobby is fantastic for me.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna finish up a little bit on talking about the watch media industry a little bit, because obviously we're in, but we want to see also from your perspective as readers and all stuff. So just purely out of curiosity, what type of stories like draw you in?
I'm quite disciplined when I read the watch article, so I just open a tab for every single platform. So I'll do say Revolution, Hodinkee, Hourglass. I open a range because I feel like the writers write very differently, so the perspective is very different. So that's how I read. Yeah. What about you, Dan?
I'm really quite selective. So I'll see a picture of the new releases. I might go and find all the information on that piece if I particularly like it. But otherwise, it just probably stays as an image because there's so many watches out there. I don't have time to look at everything.
I see.
Right? If I'm interested in purchasing a piece, I will literally watch all the YouTube, read all the articles on that piece to gain a really holistic view of that piece. Yeah. But you're also so wary of marketing, right? And that's what I think. There's a lack of honesty,
right?
And I think the watch community is smarter than what perhaps brand media think. So I'm fully aware, you get press releases and it might be a copy and paste job, right? Or, put a little bit of your spin on there.
Yeah.
But because it's controlled so much by the brand, it comes off so hard now. It needs to actually be many levels softer than, and the way things are written, they all copy each other. They just change the details. So it's so monotonous that, again, it's a bit of a turn off.
Right.
Going forward, I still think that consumers will have the loudest voice. If people actually have bought this stuff, right, then it's worth listening to. A lot of even KOLs now, right? Not media like how you guys write about watches, but they might get paid. Everybody knows they get paid. Yeah, it's not actually that convincing anymore, right? And that got screwed over because the brands, do you know what I mean? They push so hard on it. And now you're going to consumers, which I think is kind of like going full circle, because at the end of the day, you make a good product, your consumer's going to say good things about it, right? And the consumer's the most convincing, and it goes back to word of mouth, right? So just make good products, and then hopefully,
That'll do the
that
job.
will filter down.
Yeah.
So do you think the overall quality of journalism has gone down significantly with, first of all, having so many basic information available everywhere, online, Instagram, and then also with all the websites like coming out with like e-commerce as well?
Do you find it harder to find quality pieces to read
Yeah.
because there's so many?
Yeah.
See, I mentioned this, I don't know, with someone else, right? I would actually pay for better content right now. Right, watch content
Like a
that was
subscription
unfiltered,
model.
yeah, that you didn't have to take the money off the brands and be honest, right? I'd actually pay for that because it's watches is something I love. I invest a lot of money into it, so why would I not invest in due diligence of the watch, right? So I would actually pay for that. I think the person that comes closest to what I would like to read is SJX.
Okay. Yeah.
The way he dissects things, the way he covers stuff, where I don't even think he's taken any money. Yeah, a lot of the brands, they only cover if you pay, right? Pay to play. Oh, what about all the other stuff?
Yeah.
So it's just not honest enough for
Right.
me. Yeah.
I would pay. I think you would too. Like we would pay to buy books, right? So I think if good stuff is produced, who wouldn't pay? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We pay to buy. Yeah, we buy books, man.
Yeah.
Like,
The books
They're very
cost
expensive
books.
books.
so you should
The books are not
check
cheap.
it in. I mean, obviously, I like reading Waco because he always has an opinion. He's not
I
afraid to
love
say
that.
it.
Yeah.
The way he writes is very as though he's actually talking to you.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
I do like the way I like reading his articles. I always
Yeah.
think it's other stuff that I like the industry stuff now. Before I wouldn't be so interested, but I'm looking at trends. I'm looking at stuff like the purchase of Tiffany, and then you get to speculate, what will happen to Patek,
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So this industry, I think, as a collector, as you go further along the journey, it's pretty impossible not to get that appreciation of the industry.
Right.
So you look at watches and you collect these watches, and then you look at the hype pieces, all this kind of stuff. Eventually, you're going to hit a plateau. And then the only thing that keeps your interest up is, what's actually happening in the industry? Who are the industry players that make decisions? Then you're going to go into industry. And then eventually, you're going to have lots of touch points with, let's say, media, manufacture, the brands themselves, higher management. I think that's when you see opportunity. Right, because you start having an appreciation of what's actually the pieces,
Yeah.
and then you think, this is how I think it should be done, and I think that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all right. On that note, we will end. Daniel Long, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this episode of the podcast. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for taking time to do
Yeah.
this, and thank you for taking care of me in Hong Kong while I've been here.
Yeah, I hope you come back soon so we can
Yeah.
hang out
Yeah,
again.
do.
Okay, don't lie.
Or when we when we're allowed to travel, if
we're
we
allowed
stop
to
by Shanghai.
travel,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
okay.
know.
Always welcome.
Awesome.
Always welcome.
Oh, we see you in Singapore.
Oh, Singapore, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and then we'll see you
Yeah.
next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.